I love to learn, and boy did I do a lot of it in today's episode. On today's episode of Higher Learning, we are joined by Traci Wilk. She's the Chief People Officer at The Learning Experience. What a great conversation we had. Traci has been at companies like Rag & Bone, Starbucks, and Coach before coming down from New York City to here in Boca Raton to start as the Chief People Officer at The Learning Experience. Traci has so many great insights, including what she's looking for in potential franchisors, and she helps them find great people, what it's like to build a culture in a child center, and what the differences between working in New York and South Florida are. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. I'm looking forward to getting started. Welcome to another episode of Higher Learning. I am your host, Rashid. Today we are joined by a very special guest. We are joined by Traci Wilk. She is the Chief People Officer at The Learning Experience. Traci, how you doing?
I'm great. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about your transition from New York City to Boca Raton, but what are you enjoying? And the weather's really nice right now. It's going to get really humid in a little bit, but so far so good. Are you doing anything outside, any outdoor activities you're enjoying here in sunny South Florida?
Well, I just try to spend as much time outside as I possibly can, which isn't that difficult to do. Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you something. And this is kind of a phenomenon I noticed. So I've lived in South Florida since 2005. And I think I live 15 minutes from the beach. I think everybody assumes that I spend all my time at the beach. I probably go to the beach once every like 3 or 4 months at best. Like,
Same.
is that same for you? Okay.
Same for me. We know that it's there. And when I'm there, I say to myself, you probably do the same. Why don't I do this more often? But yeah.
I also have 4 kids though. And so like, I'm like running around like with my head cut off. And then they're always complaining about all the sand that they bring back into our house and track everywhere. So there's some downsides too, but yeah, you can't beat the ocean view. That's for sure.
That is for sure.
So Traci, you are the Chief People Officer at The Learning Experience. And like I said, you moved here to Boca from New York City. I'm interested in what drew you to the company and then why the timing was right to move from New York City down here to South Florida.
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, I was living in New Jersey, working in New York City, where I had always worked for my entire career. I had left an organization and was looking for a new opportunity that I just felt better aligned with my philosophy as a people leader, working for organizations where leadership truly cared about their people, had a very people-centric, people-first mindset. And as I was meeting with different companies and exploring different opportunities, I found that it's not so easy to find. You know, a lot of companies say that they want to instill that mindset in the organization, but unless you have leaders that are truly committed to organizing the company that way, it's difficult for an HR leader to put forth the initiatives that the company wants to put forth, right, in terms of attracting talent, retaining talent. So when I met with Richard Weissman, our CEO of The Learning Experience, I knew within 5 minutes that this was someone that I was going to be able to partner with and to really help him bring the organization to the next phase in its growth trajectory. And I haven't looked back since. I luckily moved to Florida before COVID. So, had that, unlike many others that, came to the realization during that time that they wanted a different type of work-life balance. I had already had it by the time I moved here and I haven't looked back. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, listen, maybe there's some housing market benefits with that too. I was going to bucket you and generalize and say, oh, we got another New Yorker that came down here during COVID, but you actually got here a little bit earlier on the trend. I'd love to hear that. One of the things that you said that's really interesting to me, and one of the things that will continue to be just key for HR as we continue to evolve going forward is, when I think about a COO coming into a company, right?
Yep.
They're going to get done what they need to get done. They can come be a bull in a china shop, and they have complete empowerment a lot of times to do that. Same with like a CFO, right? CFO, I want to do this financial, I want to take, but the chief human resources officer or the chief people officer, we're constantly at the discretion of our CEO, of our team, of our leadership to be able to make those moves. We have to be empowered, otherwise it's not successful. I look forward to the day when they just let us run roughshod and do what we need to do to get things done from a people perspective, but I just find the dichotomy about that, a little bit interesting. Hopefully
Yeah.
something's changing.
Absolutely. What's interesting is that I worked for Starbucks for about 8 years, really at the height of their growth trajectory, where they were opening a store every day.
Mhm.
And what I saw there was that this notion of taking care of your people, they'll take care of the customer, and then your results will follow, wasn't necessarily something that was, the HR philosophy. It was their growth strategy.
Mhm.
So one thing that they do that's super interesting is all of their operational leaders, in order for them to advance, they have to have a demonstrated track record of people development on their team before they'll be looked to for larger roles within the organization. So right there, that instills this mindset of everyone at that organization that is a leader has this responsibility to be a people developer.
Mhm.
And I think that's why they have been so well known for their culture, the way that they treat employees, the employee experience. So I worked there in the 2000s. So essentially, you could say I sort of grew up there in a way in terms of my HR career. So having that grounding really solidified that people development mindset in me. And when I look to hire leaders at other organizations, that's what I'm looking for, people that have that same mindset.
Yeah, and now we're definitely nerding out a little bit HR wise here, but if you look at some of these structures and the way they've been set up for so many decades plus, right? We've never really rethought them. What I've seen, what I really believe, there's a couple different things I believe. Number one, I see HR as more of a vertical than a horizontal within an organization, right? You should really have HR intrinsic to every function and maybe supporting every function differently, and what development, retention, and acquisition looks like in each of those functions a lot of times can be very different.
Yeah.
And then to your point, maybe not even be a function at all. Maybe it should just be this people mindset, this strategic idea of what we do with our people, how we develop them, engage them, retain them is intrinsic to all of our business leaders, and we have support to do that. That's something that every great company has. It's not we're waiting for HR to come tell us what to do with people. It's that I'm a great people leader and I know what to do because that's a part of my identity and how I've grown my
Totally.
career. So the more it's in the business, the better. It sounds like Starbucks is doing a kick-ass job with that. And I guess it's no surprise that not only is there one on every corner, like depending on where you are in New York City, there's like one facing each other, right? A lot of the time. So I'm interested because you worked in some of the biggest retail brands, but I'm also just fascinated with kind of New York as a business environment.
Yeah.
Tell you a quick aside, real quick. We opened a company here in South Florida and love South Florida, right? This is home. It's the company is growing here. There's a lot of great things. We opened up a New York office, I think, in 2015. And we had started doing work there with clients like Blackstone and Morgan Stanley. And I remember when I got up there, I just felt like, oh, I am like at home right now because like I'm a pretty direct communicator. I'm pretty
Yep.
assertive. I want to get things done, make stuff happen. That's MSH over here, right? And ultimately, like I just felt very simpatico in all the meetings I was going to in New York, where it's like I think they appreciated my style, and I certainly appreciated their get it done style. And so it's not to say that that's not in other communities, including here in South Florida, but man, they take it to another level there. And so that intensity
Yep.
really made me feel good. And I think that's why we've had some success up there. What was the transition like for you to go the other way, to go from working in that kind of pace? And I'm not
Yeah.
to say that the learning experience is not that same pace, but there's got to be some differences. What did you see?
Definitely. It's funny. To this day, even when I interview candidates here at the learning experience, I always say I'm looking for that New York hustle. I need people that are going to come in, they like to activate change, they like to problem solve, they're very direct. You can imagine there are a lot of New York transplants here in South Florida. So, you do have some of that. But some of the key differences are in New York, when you have a job opening, you'll have thousands of candidates. And here, that number shrinks down just by sheer volume of people, right?
Sure.
So I haven't lowered my standards and what I'm looking for in talent, but it is somewhat harder to find.
The more narrow pool.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, listen, I lived in New York. I love New York. I love the energy, the diversity of it. I'll always miss it. But there is an intensity that you don't have here in South Florida. I think people here really live to work, not I live, what is it?
They don't work to
Work
live
to live,
necessarily.
not
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah.
Uh, and it really shows. Particularly at our company, we are all about having people come to work every day and love being here in the office and collaborating and working together. So yeah, I mean, it's just different. We don't work any less. We just, I think, work smarter. And, just the overall intensity, I don't know if it's just that, the sun is shining and there's palm trees outside every day. It's just, it's different.
I mean, I'm looking out at the ocean right now at a
Yeah,
50-story view, and I'm feeling pretty laid back and pretty relaxed. If I was in New York, there's probably some sleet, some hail, something coming down, definitely some traffic noise in the back.
totally. Yeah,
It's
it's an
funny.
added level of stress, that
Oh,
commute
sure.
and yeah, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't be lackadaisical even walking the street, like otherwise you're gonna get killed and like or you're gonna get bumped into or something's gonna happen. Baz Luhrmann, I think he had this song back in the day where he said, "Live in New York, but not long enough where it makes you too hard. Live in San Francisco, but not long enough where it makes you too soft." And that's it. Like I wish I would have lived
Yep,
in New York at some point in my earlier life before I had 4 kids and a wife and
totally.
businesses and all that, because I think it can do so much for you from an intensity and a work professionalism perspective. But I would think that after a while, like you, I would might be looking for different pastures. And so I'm glad you're down here
Absolutely.
and we're gonna get together and maybe see some of those palm trees and a beach view with a drink at some point.
That
What
sounds
uh
great.
what are some of the things you took away from places like say Coach, Starbucks, you already mentioned Rag and Bone that have made you the leader today? Maybe something from each of those places that you kind of took with you from a cultural perspective.
Yeah, so I think I've had the pleasure of working at different organizations at different phases of their growth trajectory.
Mm,
So, and based on that, my role and what we were trying to accomplish was different. So I mentioned Starbucks. I mean, just I joined in 2001 at really like the height of their growth. It was, opening stores every day. There was such an intense value placed on people development, and there were just the access to resources and programs was really phenomenal. I've worked with some of the greatest people that I still keep in touch with today. And again, just that my whole HR philosophy really aligned so well with theirs. So I think me coming into organizations and helping to move companies along in their growth journey, that was like a really, really great foundation. Coach was interesting. I joined Coach, I think, really at what was at the time kind of at their height. So they had just expanded their entire outlet factory business, and that kind of took over their full price retail business. So just, huge organization. And the thing that I'll always say about working at Coach was the emphasis on high caliber talent. I mean, some of the smartest people that I ever worked with came from that company. They would pay top dollar for top tier talent, and it really, really showed. So everyone there was on their A game every single day. That in and of itself had its own set of stresses as an employee, but I really got to see what great process looks like, great organizational effectiveness. So it was really a great opportunity to see through that. And then I left to go to Rag and Bone. I love fashion. I was a huge fan of the brand. They were still in startup mode, so I was going back to my earlier roots pre-Starbucks when I had worked at two startup organizations. And just learning the innovation and seeing a peek behind the curtain on into how fashion, what that looks like from an employee perspective, what that looks like from a business perspective. I learned so much. Such a competitive market, but I loved learning about that whole process from the ground up because it was something that aligned so much with just my own passion.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so I've had all of these experiences at different types of companies, different phases of companies. But, the thing that always sticks out for me as an HR leader is having that alignment and that partnership with the ultimate leader of the organization and how important that is. If
Sure.
there is alignment there, you have free reign to make anything happen in an organization. So I've had that at some companies. I haven't had it at others. And at this phase in my career, I can tell you that,
That's
I
the
hope
most
I'm here
important
at the
thing.
learning experience until the day I retire. But if not, I will only go to work for an organization where I feel that true alignment and partnership with the leadership.
Yeah, let me ask you. So what I can kind of suss through based on some of the things you're saying is that, impact is really important to you. You want to be in a growth environment, one that's maybe fast paced and moving quickly.
Yeah.
But you've done that both in startup and enterprise type companies, which are very different ways of getting work done and very different scopes of responsibility and needs for versatility and things like that. Take the learning experience out of it for a second. Which one do you feel like you thrive better? And I know it depends on the company, but just in general, like this big, large Starbucks behemoth, coach behemoth, or like a rag and bone or a startup, like which one better fits you?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And I guess I'm going to give you two answers. I think earlier in my career, working in larger organizations that were so well resourced was so beneficial to me because I had access to so many different departments. And it was, if you needed a training program, you could, call a department, they would write it for you and they would send it to you. I am someone that personally loves the build. I love to like get my hands in it. I like to actually write the workshop. So it's funny where I work now, we're a well-established organization over 20 years old, but in many ways, because of how fast we're growing, we actually act like a startup in many ways. So, we have very lean teams here. We are a franchisor supporting a franchise organization. So, they really both have their benefits, but I would say that again, earlier in my career, having the big company
Structure, yeah.
experience, it was almost like a graduate school in some
Well, I
ways.
mean, listen, when you go into a startup, like it makes sense because like if you're coming from companies that have grown and have some sophistication to them, because a lot of times when you go into a startup, it's not about what you're bringing day one. It's they already envision that they're going to be 100
Right.
million, 500 million, billion. And so they want people that can help them grow and get to that point and scale to that point. Sometimes the things that make you successful in that environment are not what necessarily translate, especially on day one. But I
Yeah.
get that. Like I do think that that structure that you're learning up front at some of these bigger companies can have you bring some of that knowledge, that expertise, and that experience, and then kind of determine what fits and what doesn't in that startup environment. I can see that being very attractive. So that makes a ton of sense to me,
Yeah.
especially because the impact you have at the startup level is quite high, quite big comparatively to a large enterprise organization. Let's talk a little bit about the learning experience in that franchisee model you just brought up. That's different than other places you've worked, where you've been
Yeah.
serving a very large employee base, large field for sure, but also very large corporate. What is different about serving franchisors versus traditional employees?
Yeah. So there's a lot that's the same, and then there's a lot that's different. I would say what is the unique dynamic is that franchisees are independent business owners, right? So my role is to provide guidance and to really use influence to get our franchisees to be the best business owners they can be, right? So a lot of what I do is coaching and guiding them on what their people strategy is. And, we're the learning experience, we're childcare centers. And at the end of the day, we essentially have one key metric, which is occupancy. Once you can get your center filled and keep it filled, your center is profitable, and that's sort of all you need to think about. But in order to do that, you have to have your center fully staffed, you have to have great talent. So when we meet with new franchisees, oftentimes not only are they new to the childcare business, but they've never owned a business before. So really, it's not just about managing a P&L, it is about being a CEO of their center, so to speak. So it's, the challenges are different in that oftentimes franchisees, they're entrepreneurs themselves, so they have their own different expertise or their own vision.
Mhm.
But the ones that do really well, we have terrific partnerships with. And, we really try to make those partnerships with them from the ground up. Now, we do have, so in addition to our franchise centers, we do have about 10% of our centers are corporate owned centers. So those are our employees. So that's a little bit more traditional based on my past experience. We're responsible for hiring those employees, paying them, et cetera. And then we also have our headquarters based here in South Florida. So all the traditional, hiring and employee developments that you would have at a typical company are here. So I love it because we have sort of all these different factions and audiences that we get to work with. So every day is different.
Every day, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely brings about its own unique challenges, but for me, I absolutely love it. I love that at this phase in my career, I'm really able to be seen as this influencer, and my team is working to influence people to, become huge successes, going from one center to, opening 5 centers and 10 centers and really helping to change the course of our franchisees' lives.
I love that. And a big part of what your team is doing to help these franchisors is hiring great talent, which is something that, I'm all about, a big passion of mine. What are some of the things that you're teaching them to focus on to make sure that they hire great people? Because I got to imagine that it's not necessarily a big part of the criteria to become a franchisor is that you hired tons of great people in the past. So a lot of times you might be building from scratch or breaking bad habits. So I'm just interested, what are like the behavioral traits that you could try to get them to look for? What is kind of like the secret sauce or playbook that you try to get them to help them make sure they hire great people? Because that impacts obviously the learning experience overall as an organization and how you grow.
Yep. So I would say there's 3 things. One is getting them to prioritize talents and talent acquisition and talent development. Oftentimes a franchisee will sort of see it as something they only need to focus on when they have an opening, or something they need to focus on once a week. I mean, just like any customer acquisition strategy that they would use to identify new families, they need to have that same mindset. They need to prioritize it. They need to every single day be meeting with talent, even if they don't have an opening. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the importance of, so the way our centers are organized, sort of like that head role, which at a retail store might be, your store manager, they have a center director. And that role is the most influential and the most important role, I say, in this entire organization, because a employee's decision to join that team is going to be solely based on that center leader, right? Is this someone that I want to work for? And if they are hired, is this someone I want to continue working for? So, we tell franchisees to really assess, do they have the right center leader in place, someone that really cares about people, someone that is committed to people development, somebody that families, when they tour that center, are going to want to sign up their child to be in their care. So we start there. Then when we think about the teachers that we hire in our centers, we talk about the importance of someone being a cultural add. Is this person going to uplift the mood of the center, or is this person, going to diminish the culture in the center? So looking for people that are genuinely happy, that are genuinely passionate about serving others, is something that we talk a lot about. Less so about in certain states, there are certain qualifications you need to have to be teachers, but in our centers, that's what we're looking for. When it comes to hiring here at our HQ and on the corporate side, we're also looking for those types of things. We're looking for people that are proactive, that are optimistic, people that know how to collaborate, people that truly have that growth mindset. We talk a lot about the thing that I'm always trying to assess for, and the thing that I talk to our franchisees and hiring managers to try to assess for is, when you're meeting with someone, is this person going to be adaptable to change? Are they going to be proactive when they see something, they're going to say something? But do they also know how to play well in the sandbox and work well with others and be influential and help make change happen? when I interview people, that's really what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Is this person someone that is going to be frustrated by change, or is it someone that is going to activate change?
Traci, you're being a New Yorker. You're getting out in front. I wasn't ready to start asking those questions yet. Okay, let's cut over. Let's move to the hiring. I got a little bit of it there, but core hiring philosophy, right? For people that you're bringing into the organization and corporate side, proactive, deals with ambiguity and vagueness, can deal with change. What else? What's a core hiring philosophy for you when you're bringing people in the organization?
Honestly, people that are proactive, they care about the work and have a great attitude. Often I'm looking more for potential than the actual skill set. It's
Mm,
funny, my head of talent acquisition, Allie, and I, we always laugh because half the time we'll be interviewing someone and we're already thinking, okay, you're interviewing for this role, but we actually have a different role in mind for you. And you're going to
mm.
come into this role, but we're going to help develop you into the next role. So um, I would much rather hire someone that doesn't have the technical skill set, but has the attitude and the proclivity to want to learn, than someone that comes in with a ton of experience on paper.
Couldn't agree more. When I ask you about a memorable interview experience, either you were interviewing someone or they were interviewing you, could be from a previous time. You don't got to name names, but I'm interested. What comes to mind?
So, do you mean a time that I was being interviewed, or
I just want a good story.
you just
Yeah.
want a good story? Well, actually, I actually interviewed somebody yesterday
Oh,
who,
wow.
um, what I really appreciated was that she proactively discussed and shared a story about a past failure or mistake that she made in a role. And then what she did and what she learned from it and how she applied that to another situation. It's like a question that I sometimes ask. Not everybody always has an answer at the ready about a time when something didn't go well and, what did you learn from it? You could tell that this candidate, really understood the value of those learning experiences and the growth mindset. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see someone where, you've never made a mistake and, you've had success upon success. I want to hear about a time when something didn't go well and you were able to kind of come through that.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe by the time this podcast comes out, this person's working with you. I just find it super interesting that they proactively put that out there,
Yep,
put a little vulnerability out there, a little self-awareness out there, showed what they learned from it. It doesn't sound like that's necessarily what you were asking. It sounds like they more volunteered it.
totally.
And that's even more powerful. So like kudos to that person. And who are we kidding? Like, sometimes people like take it like a blind date or like an interview as, I just gotta show my best self and like, hide everything else. But you know,
Totally.
true confidence is your ability to kind of share, hey, I've made my share of mistakes too, but here's why I'm better because of it. So that's awesome. I love that. Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite question you like to ask in an interview?
Do I have a favorite question? One question I love to ask about the relationship they have with their current manager or their last manager.
Ooh,
Um,
we looking for with that.
I'm looking for, I'm looking to, what am I looking for? I'm looking to understand, how self-reflective they can be. Everyone's, as mentioned before, your relationship with your manager is going to be, 90% of your engagement with a company and an organization. Um, I want them, rather than, listen, I've had people tell me, oh, my current manager is terrible. That's why I'm looking for a new job. Or I love my current manager, but I feel like I'm not being developed. I really try to delve into it and get the nuances between, because right, they're coming to us because they're looking for a new opportunity, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes though, we're proactively sourcing people and they're very happy and they have a great relationship with their manager. But I'm always thinking about if we do hire them, what is that relationship going to be like when they become our employee and the person that they'll be reporting to really see if it's going to be a fit. Very often I can interview a candidate and I can say, wow, like I think this person, has all the qualifications. I don't know about the chemistry that they're going to have with the manager that they're going to be working for.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it just says a lot about how they respond to that question.
Yeah, I listen. I love it. I'll tell you why. Here's another side benefit to it. If you're interviewing somebody, it's one of those passive candidates in particular, and they are saying, "I love my manager. My manager's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me." I think you have a definite red flag there if that person's going to take your offer, because the number one thing I see in terms of job satisfaction is more so than compensation, title,
Yeah,
challenge, company is really the relationship you have with your manager. And most, we even train here at MSH that if somebody, if we're talking passive candidates and they love their manager, that is something that you better really understand the other factors that are coming into the motivation, because we
totally.
very rarely leave great managers because it's just such a big jump to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I use dating analogies all the time, but if you somebody meet somebody and they're talking about how great their boyfriend is, it's like good
Yeah,
luck, because
right.
they're probably not looking, right? So same thing with a company, right? And so that's something to kind of keep track of. And like I said, totally a big tie to fulfillment. I also know if somebody has everything that would seemingly would be the things you want, but gosh, their manager's like keeping them down, or they're not sure about the relationship there, then that's I've seen people leave great opportunities and great
Yep.
compensation to do that too. So I think that's a good
Yes.
call out by you. What's What's something you do to try to give people kind of a realistic job preview or create a great candidate experience when they're interviewing in your company?
So, one of the things that we try to do, right? And it's true, like you're meeting a person, you're getting, this glimpse into who they are, right? And, I'll give you an example. We had a role that we had kind of a high degree of turnover than we would like. We had two different people in the role. It didn't work out. And, I really sat down with that hiring manager to assess, like, what did we miss in the interview that we didn't get? And I think some of it was really giving a realistic job preview into what they would actually be doing rather than just having a conversation. So what we did was we brought this candidate in. She'd already, gone through the whole interview slate. Everybody liked her, but we brought her in and we had her literally sit down at the desk next to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager just kind of took her through, here's all the systems you're going to be using, here's what day to day it's actually going to look like. And seeing the questions they ask, like if they're just sitting there like a deer in headlights, we know we have a problem. But if they're engaged in the conversation, if they're offering suggestions, if they're saying, oh, have you thought about doing it this way, if they're taking notes, like those are all things that we want to see. And that has really, really worked well for us.
Ooh, I love that. That's smart. I really like that. Giving them that day in the life.
Yes,
That's always gonna. And listen, if somebody's like, you know what, I'm not into this, good. You want
totally.
to find that out early rather than once they're in the job. So
Yep,
hopefully you've had less attrition in that role since you started doing that.
we have.
Um,
Yeah.
when you miss, because we all miss once in a while, right? When you miss, is there something you can look back at as a theme or a reason why, or something where you're kicking yourself saying, I wish I would have done X?
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, we are an organization that is very, change forward. If something isn't working, we're going to shift gears and, no apologies. Like that's just the way that we are. And I noticed that oftentimes employees struggle with that. They could be working on something for a month and then the strategy we decide for one reason or another is going to change, and they have a very hard time making that pivot. So that's really something that when we are reflective and think about people where that perhaps didn't succeed in this organization, that's typically the reason. So that's where, we now in our interviews are very, very focused on giving real life scenarios and seeing what questions they ask, like seeing how their energy changes as we start talking about, shifts in philosophy or shifts in initiatives, and seeing if their energy increases or decreases.
Hmm. That's good. That's really
Yeah.
smart. That's good insight for people to take away on that one. I like that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little more day in the life. So, what's something that's going on at the company or something you're working on right now that you're really juiced about, you're really excited about?
So last year we launched what we are calling, it's Operation Blue Elephant. So Bubbles the elephant is our mascot, and because he is our main mascot, we have a cast of characters. I think we have about like 90 characters. Um, culture is everything, and our motto is happy happens here. So we've essentially have an entire strategic plan just around building culture in our centers. So we call it Operation Blue Elephant. And we have a ton of initiatives that are at different phases of implementation, all designed to help our franchisees create great work environments in their centers. So for instance, we just launched our first employee engagement survey. We are awaiting the results and are going to be sending those out to centers and giving them tools to put action plans in place based on the results from those employee engagement surveys. Another key opportunity we found in our centers was that we were losing a significant amount of new hires within their first 90 days. So we just launched a full-scale comprehensive new teacher onboarding program, really designed to engage teachers from the very start so that when they go into their classrooms, they feel competent and confident. We have put into place a new career development program called TLE Advance. So whether you're a teacher, whether you're a center director, there's a full-fledged development plan designed to help you get to the next level, which will help with our growth. We just launched our first employee app. So it's called the TLE Happy Hub. Here it is right here. And it's essentially an app. It's blending social media with all of the content that we produce to help our teachers have all the tools they need to do their jobs and to help engage them. What else? We
Got a lot going on. My
Yeah, we have a
goodness.
lot
You must be
going on. We're
jumping out
very,
of
very
bed.
busy.
I love it. You're making a big impact. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Jackie, do me a favor, write this down. I need to talk to Tracy about getting a Bubbles the elephant that we can put on the back here. If
Oh,
you
absolutely.
yeah, I need to get Bubbles up
Yeah,
here. That sounds
you got
mandatory.
it.
Um, have you read a good book recently or any type of content you've consumed that you want to share with anybody that you're just loving it, enjoying it, and you think others would too?
So my team, we just came out of our convention, and one of the workshops that we did was around atomic habits.
Oh, James
Um,
Clear, great book.
yes, and we applied it. It was Atomic Habits Level Up on Talent. So it was about how to apply atomic habits to your talent acquisition process.
Whoa.
So it was amazing. Yeah, they
Can
loved
you
it.
share anything on that? I'd love to see that. That sounds awesome. It's one of my favorite books. I read it probably once every 3 years just to kind of get my
Yeah.
systems going. Yeah, I love that.
Totally.
That sounds
It's
amazing.
it's
Great.
so good. Yeah, they did a great job. I'm happy to share it with you. But just in a nutshell, going back to this philosophy of you need to be thinking about leveling up on talent every single day. It needs to be, so whether it's organizing your day that you're going to, reach out to, 3 candidates every single morning, and kind of like building on that. So it doesn't feel like this task. It just, gets worked into your day and sort of, that the leveling effect of, as you continue to build on that. And then all of a sudden you're going to have this huge pipeline of people waiting to work at your center, but you have to build it in to what you do every day and not see it as something separate and apart from the success of your center.
Yeah, I mean, one of my big takeaways from that book is build systems, not set goals. And so a lot of it you can get lost
Yep.
and like we got to hire a great person for this position. But the key is if you
Totally.
build great systems to build great pipelines and create a great experience, then that output's going to happen. You got to
Yep.
focus more on building those great systems, though. I love that.
Exactly.
So 6 months ago, the learning experience posted. You didn't know that I was going to bring this out, but I'm here. We're doing it at the White House this week. TLE leadership team members Traci Wilk and Elisa Shepard welcomed an invitation to the White House to discuss early childhood education policies and opportunities for the future. What? I know you got a great picture here of you sitting at a big boardroom.
Yes.
All right, so tell me what did you learn from that? How was that experience?
That was such a cool experience. So, as you may know, during COVID, there was a lot of government funding that was going to childcare centers and to our franchisees. And then as, those funds started to dry up, there was a group of leaders from all of the different, the top childcare centers across the country that essentially went to the White House to meet with to meet with lobbyists and to meet with, key representatives in different states to talk to them about the importance of continuing that funding and how important it is, to hire teachers and the detrimental effects once those funds would dry up. So we made a lot of progress. There's, those conversations continue to happen. We're very focused. We have a government relations team that is essentially always trying to find funding and money for our franchisees to help support them. So it was super cool. Yeah.
Love that. That's awesome. Jealous. It sounds like an amazing experience. Last question.
Yeah.
If you had one bit of career advice to offer maybe 20-year-old Traci, or maybe someone early in their career listening to this that you didn't know then, but that you know now, what would it be?
Find a mentor. I was lucky enough to not have to seek out a mentor myself. I had a number of leaders in different organizations that I just connected with that really took an interest in me and advocated for me. And that I think really helped to sort of boost my advancement within those organizations. If there isn't somebody that you have, that immediate connection with, find it, network. People love to talk about themselves, right? So if you are young in your career and there's a leader that you sort of emulate from afar and you ask to meet with them because you want to learn about their career and how they got there, people love that stuff. So don't be afraid to do that. And just in doing that, they will take a vested interest in you. I've had that myself. I've had, I remember even at Starbucks, I had a barista come and meet with me because she had seen me conduct a workshop and she was super interested in me and what I did. And then a few months later, I needed to hire a coordinator for my team and I picked up the phone and called her. So don't be afraid to take that risk and reach out to someone that you admire within an organization, because it 9 times out of 10 is going to benefit you and your career.
And people do love to talk about themselves.
Why do.
Start this podcast? I will say that I will frame it a little bit differently. I agree with you, but I'd also say be somebody that somebody wants to mentor, because when we're looking at people that people are accomplished, and usually that's what mentors are, and they're busy. They want to feel like their time is their most valuable asset.
100%.
And so they want to see that there's somebody that is putting in the work, that has that potential, because that's a great feeling. If you feel like you're contributing to somebody that has top potential, then you're going to invest in that. You're going to put time in place. But, if you're somebody that's like not really showing all the things that are the qualities of somebody that's going to really excel down the road, you're asking somebody to be your mentor, they might be like, well, yeah, maybe. So
100%.
I would say
yes.
Shoot your shot for sure. But if you're not getting the answer you want, maybe kind of self-evaluate and reflect a little bit in the day. Am I being somebody that people would want to mentor? Because I think that's a big part of it too.
Totally. Couldn't agree more.
Love it, Traci. This has been a great conversation. I'm so excited that we got a chance to talk. Welcome to South Florida 6 years later now. This has been here a real long time, but so glad to have you out here. I'm looking forward to staying connected. Thanks for coming on.
I would love it. Thank you so much.